Al-Aqsa Mosque stormed by Israeli soldiers to allow illegal settlers in. Biden to host hunger conference as food insecurity, inflation hit many Americans. U.S. warns Americans to leave Russia. U.S. gives $66 million in flood assistance to Pakistan. India detains dozens of more Muslim groups' members over alleged terror links. Saudi Arabia launches Nusuk platform to assist pilgrimage. From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hena Zuberi. Our top story tonight: the Israeli army stormed Al-Aqsa Mosque in occupied Jerusalem at dawn on Tuesday, in preparation for Jewish settlers entering the mosque courtyards, Arabi 21 reports. Islamic Awqaf, or Religious Endowments Department officials, confirmed the soldiers were heavily armed. Occupation forces are stationed in front of Qibli prayer hall at the Mughrabi and Al-Silsila gates, the department said. Awqaf officials said Muslims under the age of 40 are being prevented from entering the mosque to pray. However, a small number of worshippers and those who stay in the mosque at all times remain there. Their numbers increased after the dawn prayer, the department said. Awqaf officials said that the Israelis used a drone to carry out what looked like a security check of the mosque courtyard before allowing the illegal settlers in. Extremist Jewish organizations and groups intensified calls for a large-scale incursion of Al-Aqsa Mosque, coinciding with the Jewish holiday Rosh Hashanah this week. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said Tuesday he would support legislation making it harder to overturn a certified presidential election. McConnell's support will bolster the legislation's chances of passing in the Senate. It puts the minority leader at odds with former President Donald Trump, who has called on the GOP senators to sink the proposal. McConnell said that the chaos of the pro-Trump mob attacking the Capitol last year certainly underscored the need for an update. McConnell said Congress' process for counting the presidential electors' votes was written 135 years ago. He added that the January 6, 2021 riot and the Democrats' attempts to challenge the lawful election of a Republican president in 2001, 2005, and 2017 makes a necessary change. U.S. President Joe Biden's administration held a conference on nutrition and hunger on Wednesday. The White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health is the first of its kind in more than 50 years. It comes at a time when many Americans are struggling with food insecurity, inflation, and diet-related chronic diseases. These include heart disease, obesity, and type 2 diabetes, the White House said. They're some of the leading causes of death and disability. Researchers say nearly 900 people die every day in the United States from diet-related heart disease, and millions more are at high risk. The COVID-19 pandemic has worsened the challenge of lack of access to healthy and affordable foods, the White House said. 80% of U.S. voters want the federal government to create a paid family and medical leave program, a new survey released Friday says. Progressive polling firm Navigator found 89% of Democrats, 76% of independents, and 70% of Republicans support establishing such a federal program. It would allow workers to take paid leave for serious illnesses or to provide care for sick or disabled family members and newborns or newly adopted children. Only 12% of voters are opposed to the idea, according to the survey. More than half of voters would be more likely to vote for a candidate who publicly supports paid family and medical leave, per the survey. And 51% of voters would be more motivated to vote in midterm elections if Congress supported passage of a national paid leave and medical program. On Tuesday, progressives cheered the Biden administration. This was after the White House announced that Medicare Part B premiums and deductibles will decrease in 2023. It's the first time in more than a decade that seniors and people with disabilities will pay less for health services and medical equipment not covered by Part A. The standard monthly premium for Part B enrollees will be $164.90 in 2023. That is a decrease of $5.20 from 2022, according to the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The annual deductible for all recipients will be $226, a decrease of $7 from this year. CNN reports the reduction comes after a large spike in 2022 premiums. A Pakistani-American taxi driver says his license and livelihood were suspended after a New York Police Department officer falsely accused him of assault. Ishtiaq Ahmed of Brooklyn claims police framed him for an assault and arrested him inside his mosque in retaliation for enforcing social distancing guidelines there. Brooklyn prosecutors dropped the case for lack of evidence less than 3 months after Ahmed's arrest in June 2021. Now, the 41-year-old is suing the NYPD in federal court and demanding unspecified compensation and punitive damages. Ahmed's taxi license was suspended while he was facing charges. A community affairs officer who arrested Ahmed is still working at the 70th precinct. She had been previously disciplined on 2 separate occasions for issues related to arrests or summons. Mecki Masjid Muslim Community Center in Brooklyn has been surveilled by the NYPD since it launched its post-9/11 Muslim surveillance program. The mosque publicly cut ties with the NYPD and barred uniformed officers from entering. Documented previously reported. A groundbreaking ceremony Saturday launched the start of construction of the Islamic Center of Naperville's Mosque in West suburban Chicago. It comes 10 months after the Naperville City Council unanimously approved the mosque's plans for expansion. ICN has owned the 13.3-acre parcel for more than a decade. Hearings before the Planning and Zoning Commission on the proposal began in January 2021. The proposal was actively opposed by Indian Americans who adhere to Hindutva movement from India. More than 500 people spoke and thousands more signed online petitions for and against the mosque's expansion plan. U.S. gives $66 million in flood assistance to Pakistan. Details after the break. Stay tuned and we will be right back after these messages.
A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today.
I am what hunger looks like in America.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. Let's stand with those who stand with us. I'm talking about Nadine Maenza. For 2 years in a row, Nadine Maenza, as chair, led Yusuf to ask the US government to sanction India and declare it is a country of particular concern. It was Yusuf, by the way, whose recommendation was used to ban Modi for 10 years from entering the United States of America. Join hand in recognizing Yusuf and honoring Nadine Maenza on October 2nd. Justice for All is a Muslim-led human rights organization with a 30 years track record. You have heard of name Burma Task Force? That's Justice for All. We started 30 years ago when Bosnian genocide was going on, and working together we stopped that. Join hand today and be there on October 2nd to stop genocide and protect Muslim minorities around the world. Scan this code on the screen to register or visit justiceforall.org/VA. Assalamu alaikum. To stop this genocide, we need your help.
Welcome back. On Monday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced another $10 million in food security assistance for flood-hit Pakistan. The $10 million is on top of the $56 million in humanitarian assistance provided in the immediate aftermath of the flooding. Blinken said that the U.S. has sent nearly 17 planes full of food supplies and materials to build shelters, tents, and tarps. Blinken was speaking at an event with Pakistani Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari when he made the announcement. He said a third of the country remains underwater after catastrophic storms, which, he said, affects 33 million people. Farmers' entire harvests have been submerged, people's homes have been washed away, and schools have been ravaged. Blinken warned of the immediate and long-term impact. However, activists are saying this is not enough. The United States, which is one of the major contributors to climate change, needs to step up and asks for more to do more. Indian investigating agencies on Tuesday conducted several raids in New Delhi and other parts of the country. They detained dozens of people associated with the Popular Front of India, a Muslim organization, over alleged terror links, police said. The raids come days after India's anti-terror National Investigation Agency said 45 people associated with the group were arrested in coordinated searches nationwide. Suman Nalwa, a Delhi police official, said 30 people have been detained so far in the capital. People associated with the group were also detained in the states of Assam and Madhya Pradesh. NDTV reported the second round of nationwide crackdown on the organization is underway, with 247 arrested so far. The Indian government has accused the Popular Front of India of having links with terrorist outfits, a charge the group denies. Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Hajj and Umrah has launched a new online platform to assist those arriving in Mecca and Medina to complete the pilgrimages. Nusuk will help facilitate the arrival of pilgrims and assist them with religious rituals. Arab News reports the platform allows pilgrims to organize their visit, including with e-visa applications and booking flights and accommodations. Dr. Tawfiq Al-Rabia is the Minister of Hajj and Umrah and Chairman of the Committee of the Pilgrims Experience Program. He said Nusuk uses the latest technology to improve the quality of services provided to pilgrims. The move is part of the kingdom's Vision 2030 aimed at improving and modernizing pilgrim services. The platform was launched in cooperation with the Saudi Tourism Authority. The U.S. Embassy in Moscow has issued a security alert urging U.S. citizens to leave Russia immediately while they still can. It warns that Russia may refuse to acknowledge dual nationals' U.S. citizenship, deny access to U.S. consulate assistance, and prevent their departure. Russia may also constrict dual nationals for military service, the alert warns. The news comes in the wake of Russian President Vladimir Putin's order for partial mobilization of Russian men to fight in the war in Ukraine. Long lines of cars have formed at Russia's borders with Finland, Georgia, and Mongolia as thousands of men eligible for military service flee the country. Thousands bid farewell to the late Sheikh Yusuf Al-Qaradawi, a renowned religious scholar and political activist. Among the funeral attendees were Qatar's Amir Sheikh Abdullah bin Hamad Al Thani and Prime Minister Khalid bin Khalifa Al Thani. Leaders from across the Muslim world paid tribute to the scholar. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan conveyed condolences on Tuesday. Hamas officials were among thousands who participated in the funeral procession of the influential Egyptian Muslim cleric in Doha. Qaradawi was the spiritual leader of the Muslim Brotherhood movement, Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimin. He died in Qatar Monday at the age of 96. Sheikh Al-Qaradawi was among the few Muslim clerics who publicly backed the 2011 Arab Spring uprising in Egypt and across the Arab world.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. If you could see you through my eyes instead of your ego, I believe you'd be surprised to see that you've been blind. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Yeah, before you abuse, criticize and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Abdul Malik Mujahid. Muslims get bombarded with negative news, so good things which we do remain unknown. For example, do you know that Muslim Americans helped stop the genocide in Bosnia? Recently, Muslim Americans defeated Apple, Coca-Cola, Nike, and their lobbies to get a law passed through Congress about Uyghurs. Do you also know that it were Muslim Americans who work hard and smart to block Modi from entering the United States for 10 years? Yes, Alhamdulillah. All of that is your credit. Let's keep doing the good thing. Alhamdulillah, 3 achievers of our community are coming to Chicago to help strengthen Justice for All. Justice for All is a human rights organization run by Muslims based in Chicago. We will honor Arsalan Suleiman, a young person raised in our communities who filed a lawsuit on Burma. because of the Rohingya genocide. We'll also honor Ambassador Rashad Hussain, raised in our communities, married in Chicago, and who is now the ambassador at large for international religious freedom. In addition, we will honor the latest commissioner of Yusuf, Imam Muhammad Majid, for his relentless support for Burma Task Force. Please join me. Let's come together on October 9th in Chicago. Scan this code to register or visit justiceforall.org/Chicago. Assalamu alaikum. To stop this genocide, we need your help.
Welcome back. To discuss the food insecurity in the U.S., let's go to Edward Ahmed Mitchell. Over to you, Edward.
Thank you, Hena. Now we move to a discussion of something that impacts far too many Americans, and that is the problem of hunger in America. How many people in this country are still going hungry every day, including children? And what can our country do to address this problem, not only here, but around the world? To discuss this important topic, I'd like to bring on our guest right now, Katie Martin. Katie is the CEO of More Than Food Consulting, LLC. She is a doctor, a PhD, Dr. Martin. She's a thought leader with 25 years of experience in anti-hunger work. She's also the author of a brand new book titled Reinventing Food Banks and Pantries, New Tools to End Food Hunger. So she is the exact person we want to speak to today about this issue. Dr. Martin, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm great, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you and your audience.
Absolutely, absolutely. First, tell us a bit about the work that your organization does. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Thanks. So More Than Food Consulting is a brand new consulting firm, and our goal is to promote a paradigm shift in our approach to tackling the preventable problem of hunger in America, and even more broadly. And this paradigm shift is moving away from short-term transactions of distributing food to more holistic and comprehensive solutions that foster long-term food security. And I've spent my career focused on creating programs and conducting research on evidence-based programs to tackle food insecurity and to promote health and nutritious food.
That's wonderful, Dr. Martin. So let me ask you this. What is the current status of hunger in America? Can you give us an overview of what the situation looks like? The good, the bad, the progress, the backsliding? Where are we right now?
Right. So every year, the U.S. Department of Agriculture releases data on food insecurity. It's about a 1-year time lag. So they just released data this September based on food insecurity rates from 2021. Really during the height of the pandemic. And it found that food insecurity had not significantly increased or changed from the prior year, which is good news. Yet about 10% of US households struggle and worry about getting enough food for their families at the end of the week or the end of the month. And that's just unacceptable. And I would suggest that the good news of the reason why it didn't increase so dramatically during COVID was because of a lot of interventions, primarily from the federal government to increase benefits, to reduce barriers for receiving federal food assistance, other additional supports. And we'll talk about that in a minute with the White House conference. But the other thing to note that food insecurity affects communities all across the United States, but it disproportionately affects certain groups of people, predominantly single mothers with children and people of color. And we know that this isn't by accident, that there are systemic inequalities and structural inequities in our society and our policies and our programs that make it more difficult for certain groups of people to get ahead and have access to enough food.
So tell us about what the White House is proposing to do about some of these problems. They're having a summit today. Is this something that is going to be a positive? It's going to have a positive impact? Is it just kind of starting the conversation? Tell us about the White House summit and what you expect from that.
Well, I'm an optimist by nature, and I'm very hopeful that this White House conference will result in substantive policy change and programmatic changes that I hope it's not just talk. It's particularly exciting, I think, because this is the first time in my lifetime that we've had a White House conference. The first one was in 1969, the year that I was born, 52 years ago. It's taken that long to reconvene a White House conference. So it's critical. And the first conference in 1969 resulted in some really substantive changes. There were increases in the food stamp program and the development of the WIC program, Women, Infants, and Children, because it was recognized that there were vulnerable groups, particularly women, pregnant women, infants, and children, that would benefit from nutrition assistance. That WIC program came out of the White House conference. So I'm hopeful that there are substantive changes that will take place. The Biden administration is proposing public-private responses, so not just changes within federal food assistance programs, but also partnerships and buy-in from corporate America to make it easier for people to access and afford enough food. They are not just focused on the issue of food insecurity, but also looking at nutrition security. So making sure that nutritious food is more readily available, affordable, accessible. Also looking at activity levels. So we know that food insecurity, chronic diseases such as overweight, obesity, type 2 diabetes go hand in hand frequently. So that not only providing access to nutritious food, but also opportunities for physical activity in communities where folks are most vulnerable.
Dr. Martin, can you tell us about a little bit more about COVID? What were some of the interventions the government engaged in to help things not get worse? For example, the child tax credit. Can you tell us about what impact that may or may not have had in addressing the issue of child hunger?
Yeah, it's huge. And I appreciate you bringing that up because that's also one of the hopes from this conference is to extend that child tax credit. It's critical. And I think some of the early analysis was that by implementing and offering this child tax credit, we could cut child poverty nearly in half. That's, you can't overstate how important that is for the most vulnerable, for families with kids, to have that additional economic support to be able to make ends meet. Other initiatives that they're discussing is increasing eligibility for the SNAP program, what used to be called food stamps, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, increasing eligibility for the Summer Food Service Program. So when school is out, families that rely on school breakfast and school lunch during the school year can access additional school meals during the summer when food insecurity often spikes. Those are just a couple examples. During COVID, there were many such bureaucratic changes that took place to make it easier for people to access food and other supports. So things like an eviction moratorium, making sure that people weren't going to be evicted if they couldn't pay their rent, pausing student loan payments, making it easier for people to save up the money that they need in order to pay for groceries, pay for other necessary expenditures. There are so many things when we think about food insecurity, it's so closely linked to poverty. And so by addressing poverty alleviation, we make it easier for people to be food secure.
Now, Dr. Martin, we've talked a lot about what government can or can't do to address this problem. What about the private sector? Anything you'd recommend there that would help address the issue of food security? And even beyond that, beyond corporations, anything that individuals, can be doing or should be doing to try to help to address this problem?
Mm-hmm. So I think We so often think that, and the government should play a big role in this. And I think part of the advocacy here is increasing the federal minimum wage so that when people are working, they're doing their part, that they're getting a living wage to make ends meet. The corporate sector can do that on their own. We've seen that, especially during COVID. It's been more challenging for businesses to hire enough staff. And so they've done that on their own. They've said in order to attract good talent, they need to pay people more. Imagine that. We should pay people living wages, providing benefits. So often, in order to make it easier for their bottom line, corporations will often pay folks for part-time labor so that they don't have to pay for health insurance and benefits. And then those costs fall on the rest of us in society when people can't afford and access healthcare and healthy, nutritious food. So the corporate America and the private sector can pay living wages with benefits. There are other opportunities in terms of providing access and donating healthy, nutritious food to food banks and to food pantries. That's a lot of the work that I've been focused on in the last few years is within the charitable food system of how do we make it easier for people to afford healthy food and free food as well.
Understood.
And in terms of individuals, what individuals can do, there are many opportunities to get involved in your local communities, whether that's helping to volunteer at a local food pantry. In my book, Reinventing Food Banks and Pantries, I provide lots of action steps that you can take in your community today.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Martin, I want to thank you so much for your time and sharing this expertise with us. Anything else you want to share with us? I mean, I'll just throw this question to you. You've covered a lot of potential solutions. I think we've hit so much. I'm sure there's more. But, if there was, one thing, just one short-term thing that you think needs to get done in the near future that could really address the problem, is it the tax credit? Is there something else that can be done short-term to make a big dent in this problem? Private, public, or otherwise?
Well, not to be too pithy, but vote. Your vote matters. All of these initiatives that we're talking about that the Biden administration is proposing, most of these will need congressional approval. So the folks that you elect into the House of Representatives and into the Senate make a difference. And so ask your local politicians how they feel about food insecurity and making sure that people can access healthy, nutritious food, and then vote for those who will support these types of initiatives.
Dr. Martin, I want to thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for covering this serious and disturbing issue. It's so sad that this is a problem in America, given the wealth our country has. So we thank you for the work you've done to address it and for sharing your expertise with us today. We hope to have you back in the future to, God willing, share some positive news about progress in this fight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. And Hena, we'll send it back to you.
Thank you so much, Edward. That's all from our Washington studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.